Hello and welcome. The AEC Routemaster was designed for the needs of one operator, and that one operator was London Transport. Now, all the technology and the bits and pieces that London Transport required in a bus might sometimes hamper selling that bus onto other operators. The Routemaster itself occupied a rather odd place in the AEC Park Royal model range. And it's worth mentioning at the time that both AEC and Park Royal were under the common ownership of Associated Commercial Vehicles, or ACV. But this didn't lock them into any agreement, because Park Royal was free to body the products of competing chassis manufacturers such as Leyland and Daimler. However, in June 1962, Leyland ceased to be a competitor when it was merged with ACV. So double-deck-wise, AEC was producing the AEC Regent V, which featured the same engine and gearbox options as the Routemaster, but it was on a conventional ladder frame chassis. Now, at this point, it might be worth wondering why AEC just didn't adapt a version of the Regent V for London specifications, but as is not to wonder why, is it? The other double-decker bus that AEC was building at the time was the Bridgemaster, which was an integrally built vehicle and was developed from the Routemaster itself. This would later be replaced by the Renown, which was a separate chassis that could be bodied by a bodybuilder of choice. Both the Renown and the Bridgemaster, had you not guessed by its name, were intended to be bodied as low-height buses in a similar design to the Bristol low-decker. Now, if I was to say to you that the AEC Routemaster had quite a bit in common with the Leyland National, would you believe me? And would you AEC Routemaster fans be about to hit the unsubscribe button on my channel? Well, before you do, hear me out. Both buses were considered advanced designs for their time. Both buses were integrally built with running units and subframes. And now I know, aside from the fact that one was a double-decker and one was a single-decker, one was a front engine and one was a rear engine, but we'll kind of gloss over that for the time being. But the point I'm making is the Routemaster's body, a bit like the Leyland Nationals, was a giant Meccano set and was very strong and could be easily adapted to other layouts. An example of this was the RML. The original Routemaster, as produced, measured 27 foot 6 inches long and had a 16 foot 10 inch wheelbase. However, in 1956 there had been revised regulations which had legalised the operation of a 30 foot long 2-axle double-decker bus. Now, it can be argued that London Transport and AEC were slow to take up this option of a longer bus, but in 1961 the first long Routemaster was built, and these were originally coded ERs, Extended Routemasters, but this was later changed to the code that we all know and love, RML, Routemaster Lengthened. Again, because of its Meccano set-like construction, the Routemaster was lengthened in a novel way by simply inserting an additional short bay in the centre of the body. This increased the wheelbase from 16 foot 10 to 19 foot 2, whilst the two subframes carrying the mechanical units were unaffected and unaltered. The next step by AEC was to try building a Routemaster with the stairs and the doors at the front of the saloon behind the driver's cab. Now, at the time, this layout was finding favour with various operators outside of London. And this Routemaster, which would eventually become an RMF, was exhibited at the 1962 Commercial Motor Show. Painted in full London Transport livery and blinded up for the Route 104, which ran from Moorgate to Barnet, incidentally a route that the bus never operated on, the bus carried the bonnet number of RMF, Routemaster Front Entrance, 1254, and was given the registration of 254 CLT. There was no apparent eagerness by AEC to demonstrate the Routemaster to other operators, which may sound a bit crazy. You've got this high-tech bus that you're trying to sell to people and you don't demonstrate it to them. Well, the reason being was that the AEC Regent V was a very established model and was being produced in quite good numbers at that time. Despite this, RMF 1254, the forward entrance Routemaster, did make a few trips into provincial England to demonstrate its goods. It visited Liverpool Corporation in the end of October 1962, but Liverpool had already ordered Leyland Atlanteans in quantity. RMF 1254 then returned to Aldenham for the winter, but was back out in March 1963, where it went down to Kent for 2 weeks with East Kent Road Car Company Limited. Now, I don't know about you, but the thought of front entrance Routemasters in East Kent Maroon and Cream is something that fills me with joy. However, East Kent at that time was busy buying Park Royal bodied Regent Vs, and it may have been interested in just comparing its Regents with the Routemaster rather than committing to buying a Routemaster. Back to Aldenham went RMF 1254, but it went off north again to Halifax Corporation in October 1963, but again it didn't find any orders, and Halifax continued to buy conventional Leyland Titans. Now, it's worth mentioning as well at this point that a standard Routemaster, RM1414, which was fitted with a Leyland engine, spent 2 weeks in service with Manchester Corporation in February 1963, but again this didn't result in any orders. However, in the middle of 1964, RMF 1254 was evaluated by British European Airways, and shortly after there was an order for 65 vehicles of a similar but slightly shorter design. Now, it's negligible whether RMF 1254 actually helped convince BEA to buy the Routemasters, or whether it was in fact London Transport who also gave them a nudge, because London Transport was actually maintaining the BEA fleet. So in the interest of standardisation, I suspect London Transport may have had a bit of an influence. Now, these BEA Routemasters are worthy of a video on their own, and at some point in the future I will do a video for you regarding these buses. But the focus on this video is the Northern General Routemasters. In 1963, Northern General were in the market for some better than average buses for use on its interurban routes, especially the ones it shared with United, who were running Bristol FLFs on their part of the service. Northern General had been a big fan of the Leyland Atlantean and had well over 100 in service at this point. But the Atlantean's performance on these interurban routes didn't compare favourably to the Bristol FLFs of United. So it caused some surprise when Northern General placed an order for a total of 50 Routemasters for use on these interurban services. They were going to be forward entrance and of a 30-foot length, so they would be broadly similar to RMF 1254. Power would be through a Leyland 0600 engine, but this would be fitted with an air cleaner, which was incidentally an item of equipment which London Transport didn't think was necessary on its own Routemasters. They would be fitted with a 4-speed semi-automatic gearbox and, more importantly, worm drive rear axles. Now, you'll find out later why that is quite an important extra. The Routemasters were initially fitted with a standard 29-gallon fuel tank, although this was found to be inadequate for the high daily mileages achieved by these vehicles, and they were subsequently fitted with 45-gallon tanks. The Northern General buses were 72-seaters, which would have been 41 upstairs and 31 down, and this gave them 3 more seats on the upper saloon than what had been fitted to RMF 1254. And this was achieved by the fitting of double seats opposite the top of the staircase and having an extra forward-facing seat on the offside in place of the one inward-facing seat as fitted on RMF 1254. These buses would be delivered in 2 batches, 18 arriving in March 1964, and the other 32 arrived between the end of 1964 into the summer of 1965. The first batch were registered RCN 685 to RCN 702 and were given the fleet numbers 2985 to 2102. One bus, 2103, was given the odd registration of DUP 249B. Whilst 2104 to 2107 were given the registrations of EUP 404 to 407B, and the rest of the batch, 2108 to 2134, was registered FPT 578 to 604C. In October 1966, RMF 1254 was withdrawn from service and taken to Chiswick, where it was fitted with a Leyland engine before sale to Northern General, where it joined its similar buses. Now, there were detailed differences between the Northern General Routemasters and RMF 1254 as built. Aside from the seating layout as mentioned previously, one of the most visual differences between the Northern General buses and RMF 1254 was that 1254 was fitted with standard Routemaster wind-down windows, whilst the Northern General ones had top sliders. The Northern General buses also didn't have front opening windows on the upper deck, whereas 1254 did. Being a London bus as well, 1254 was fitted with a full set of London Transport Routemaster standard destination blinds, whilst the Northern General ones only had the blinds at the front, and these were to an almost National Bus Company style destination display, normally with the famous Shop at Bins advert over the top. There were several other detailed differences as well, such as the between decks heater grille on the front of the bus and the brake cooling grills, which were fitted underneath the headlights as well. Interestingly, RMF 1254 was the first Routemaster to carry the triangular radiator badge. However, the Northern General and indeed the BEA vehicles carried a different style of Routemaster badge in place of the London Transport Routemasters. When new, the Northern General Routemasters were painted overall maroon with a cream relief band. Some were later repainted with cream window surrounds and a cream roof. In 1969, the BET group became part of the National Bus Company, and all of the Routemasters eventually received the corporate National Bus Company liveries, most of them in poppy red and white. However, two of the Routemasters received the yellow and white, which was used for buses operating within the area of Tyneside, which later became Tyne and Wear Passenger Transport Executive. In January 1975, the Routemaster fleet was renumbered, starting from 3069 to 3118. As was with the case with a lot of operators at the time, Northern General was interested in extending double-decker one-man bus operation in the early 1970s, but wasn't too happy with the high operational costs associated with the current rear-engine buses such as the Atlantean or the Fleet Line. The company extensively rebuilt a Leyland Titan PD3 for semi-normal control layout for one-man operation, and the company undertook some similar work on an accident-damaged Routemaster. These buses were known as the Tynesider, and the Routemaster became the Wearsider. Now, if you'd like me to do a separate video on both the Tynesider and the Wearsider and the rebuild that they were undertaken, please comment down below. But basically, the rebuild on the Routemaster involved moving the driving position and the staircase back so the driver was closer to the entrance and then could collect fares without having to keep turning around all the time. The aim of this was to have reliable one-man operated double-decker buses. However, the high cost of the rebuild meant that this was the only Routemaster treated. The Wearsider took to the road in September 1972 and ran until mid-1978. Withdrawal of its Routemaster fleet was started by Northern General early in 1978 and was completed in December 1980. The extensively and expensively rebuilt Wearsider being one of the first to be withdrawn. London Transport would go on to eventually purchase 14 of the Northern General vehicles. 2 were bought for spares in 1978 and were not taken into stock. 10 arrived at the end of 1979 and were followed by 2 more in August 1980. They were initially allocated the bonnet numbers of RMF 2761 to RMF 2772. The plan was that London Transport would overhaul them and then put them into service. However, with their Leyland engines and non-standard bodies, and the more important worm drive rear axle instead of the spiral bevel type of the standard London Routemasters, it was considered to be too expensive to bring them into line with the other Routemasters in London Transport's fleet. And the idea was quietly dropped, and they were all sold in 1981 without being used. 4 other Northern General Routemasters, though, did see service in London in the ownership of Brackwell of Cheam and the obsolete fleet. These buses were 3102 and 3103 and 3090 and 3091. They were painted in London Transport red livery, and 2 of them were open-topped. EUP 406B passed from obsolete fleet to a private owner who converted it again to open top and renumbered it RMT, Routemaster Tourer 2793. This was hired by the Commercial Operations Unit of London Transport in the summer of 1986. Now, this Commercial Operations Unit later became London Coaches, who had the responsibility for the Round London Sightseeing Tour. At the time, the Routemasters were very popular on the Round London Sightseeing Tour. So popular that London Coaches later bought RMT 2794, which was former Northern General 3102. FPT 588C, FPT 592C and FPT 603 also went on London sightseeing duties, although they worked for the Big Bus Company, where they were painted in the attractive East Kent style maroon and cream livery. Although by now most of these buses that had worked in London had lost a lot of the bits and pieces that made them unique to Northern Generals, such as the top sliding windows and the Northern General style destination displays. Today there's believed to be 13 survivors around the world of the Northern General Routemasters. 4 of these are being preserved, while others are used as exhibition units and things like mobile bars. I do hope you enjoyed the brief look at this rather interesting batch of vehicles. If you did enjoy this video, please like and share it, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss my future video releases. Don't forget to hit that notification bell too. Don't worry, the video won't stop when you hit the bell. It'll just mean that you will be updated when I make another release of a similar sort of video. Thank you so very much for watching this video and supporting my channel. And don't forget to have a look at the other videos here on my YouTube channel too. You look like a bus enthusiast of good taste. There's bound to be something there that will appeal to you. I'll catch you next time. Bye for now.